Hey guys, how's it going? It's Thang here. So I'm currently on the PTR playing my Crusader patch 2.3. I'm pretty much playing the new set, which is the Secret of Light, and also the pretty much the cookie cutter build for all the Crusader, the Hammer Time build, or the Hammered In, whichever one you call it. But as you can see, that's a lot of hammers being thrown out because this is pretty much basically our build, and basically our weapon to use is hammers. Hammers, hammers, hammers all the time is what we do in this game for the Crusader. Anyway, so I just want to show you a little bit extra footage of how the build is and how it's played. So you're pretty much, you know, holding left button to move, and then clicking on the right button for the Blessed Hammer, and then that's how you get that much amount of hammers as well. And also, as you notice, I'm actually playing on T10, which is an equivalent to Greater Rift 45. So it's pretty much a lot of damage towards me, but I can definitely do it. So that means that you can definitely do it yourself too. Now you can see that I can do like the 1 billion, 1.5 billion damage, but you know, like that is really depends on your Paragon level and the gems you use. So if you are a lower Paragon level, I know it sounds like Paragon levels, but Paragon levels, that means that if you are lower in Paragon levels, you may not be able to hit that damage. But anyways, so a little bit more footage, and then we'll go into the skills, what you need, and the skills, the gears, and the passive skills, and then the Kanai cube. Oh, I'm messing up because I'm actually playing and talking at the same time. Sorry about that. So let's go back to town, and then we will check out that stuff, okay? Alright, let's look at our items that we need, and with the Kanai's cube and the legendaries that we also need. So the first items we need is the Secret of Light set pieces. So we need the whole entire set. We're not doing any of the Ring of Grandeur because we have a preset of rings that is required for this build. So we need the whole set of Secrets of Light right here. Now we're gonna go into the passives, and then we'll go into the rest of the skills, okay? So the two set piece is every use of Blessed Hammer that hits an enemy reduces the cooldown of Falling Sword and Provoke by 1 second. This is very important because we're going to be using Provoke just to gain back our wrath, so that's why it's important, and it has a 20 seconds cooldown, so that's not good. Also, I just want to mention that before we continue on, this is PTR, that means anything can change. So when it hits live and this is changed, we'll make a new video. And also, this build is non-seasonal, so anybody can use it. And also that this is a no cooldown reduction build, so we're not concentrating on cooldown reductions at all. Okay, anyways, two set piece is really good because every single time our hammer hits an enemy, it reduces the cooldown of our Provoke, which is what we need to actually gain back our wrath. And the more wrath we have means that the more hammers we throw out, which means more damage that we do constantly, right? So that is the pretty much idea of this build, is the more wrath you have, the more hammers you have, means that more damage that you do. Okay, so keep that in mind when I have all these wrath regeneration skills on hand, okay? So the 4-piece set is that you take 50% less damage for 8 seconds after landing with Falling Sword, which means kind of useless right now in this build itself because we're not using Falling Sword itself. So it's a useless piece of set right there. That really needs to change a little bit. So 6-piece set is increase the damage of your Blessed Hammer by 750%. Is really good. That is where our damage mainly comes from. So we can do like that 400, 500, 600, up to 900 million or to a billion hit without the other buffs coming into play, and it's really good as well. It makes a Blessed Hammer extremely well, so that is why that set is good. So the next one we need is the shield right here, which Blessed Hammer damage is increased by 200 to, well, an X amount for the first 3 enemies it hits. So that's pretty self-explanatory. After the three enemies that it hit, it goes back to 0. It doesn't apply this bonus right here. Okay, so the next one we have is our braces, which is Gabriel's Ram braces. So whenever a Blessed Hammer hits 3 enemies or lower, it reduces a certain amount of percentage wrath refunded to us. This is actually really good on bosses, especially when there is no ads that the boss summons, so that we can constantly pretty much throw out Blessed Hammer. Now Blessed Hammer only has 10 wrath cost, but still it does add up over time, and when there's a boss that doesn't spawn ads, that means that we can have it refunded constantly for us. Okay, so that is actually really cool right there. The next one we need is now this is an interesting thing. So you can have the furnace, which is required, or you can have the Joanna's argument right here. Now the two, you can switch either or, and it still pretty much works the same. So it's good to have an ancient. Now the best in slot is actually an ancient furnace with the maximum damage against elite. That is the one we're going for. If you don't have an ancient, and you don't have an ancient furnace, but you have an ancient Joanna's argument, then use that instead of the furnace. So either or goes in the cube. So because I have a better furnace, then my Joanna's argument is in the cube. Okay, so that's why I have it there. So if you have an ancient Joanna's argument but you don't have an ancient furnace, then use either or. It's up to you. So next one we need is the belt. So we want the highest damaging belt, which is the witching hour, so that's why I'm using the witching hour, so we have more damage. But if you feel like you need more let's say damage reduction, then use the strings of ears. It will reduce your melee damage by at least 30% or an X amount of percent. Those two are recommended for you. You can use other belts if you want to as well. It's not set in stone, right? For amulets, the best one is the Hellfire Amulet with a good, passive ability. But if you don't have the Hellfire Amulet, then go with the Eye of Ouch right here. It reduces the damage from range by 30%. So that's pretty good. If you don't have those two, use whichever amulet that feels best for you. For the rings, so as I mentioned before, we're not using the Ring of Royal Grandeur because there are 3 set rings that we are using. So the first one, which is required period, is the Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. Now because we are not running a cooldown reduction build, this helps us to reduce cooldown on all of our skills one at a time. So whenever you use a Wrath resource skill, which means that Blessed Hammer uses resource and it hits an enemy, it will reduce one skill down by 1 second every single time it hits. So that means that you can pretty much synchronize this with Akarat's Champion to be up all at the same time, because Akarat's Champion has a 90 seconds cooldown reduction right here, which really sucks. But because you're throwing out so many hammers, that every single hammer that hits a target will reduce one skill up then, and then goes to the next skill, goes to the next skill, right? So Akarat's Champion has a 20 seconds uptime and 90 seconds cooldown reduction. So you can pretty much synchronize it so that you have Akarat's Champion up all the time, which is really good because it regens your wrath, and it increases your armor by 150% and your damage by 35%. So that's really cool, especially with Prophet. That means that when you take a fatal damage, Akarat's Champion will return you back to full health. So that's why we have this. That's why we also have the Obsidian Ring of Zodiac. So it helps out a lot, especially with Provoke right here. Although the 2 set piece really does help, with the Ring of Zodiac, it does it even more. It pretty much makes it instant Provoke. So you can always have Wrath. You can pretty much have full Wrath all the time. But sometimes I'm not aware of it and I don't use it. So it's the player's fault, not the game's. Anyways, the next ring we're going to use is the Conventions of Elements. Now if you have a shitty Conventions of Element, because there is a 150 to 200% that X amount increase in damage. If you have a shitty one, you put it into Kanai's cube. If you have an ancient one with 200 or like mine is at 196, then use that instead. Now the reason why I'm using this instead of it being the cube, because I've actually salvaged all my Unity, stupid me, so I don't have a Unity ring to equip, so that's why I have the Convention of Elements on here instead. But if you had a Unity ring and it's ancient, then use that instead and put your conventions of element into your Kanai's cube. Okay, so that does it for the rings, and for the items for the legendary gems. Now I'm using the Bane of Trap, of course, to increase the damage, and of course the speed movement reduction by 30%. This is actually really required, because we want to slow down the mob so that they get caught up in the all the blessed hammer that we throw. So we don't want them to be at 100% speed. We want them to be lower speed so that they move through all our blessed hammer and they get hit and damage. So this one is required, period. The next one we're using is the Taeguk, which increases our armor and damage by an X amount. So I have 66 stacks right now divided by 2, which increases my armor and my damage by 33%. So that's why I have it, because I'm constantly throwing hammers. That means that my Taeguk is always constantly up unless I'm moving from one spot to another. And then the last one I have is the Gokuk of Swiftness. I'm not actually using this for the cooldown reduction, but more of the attack speed, because the faster I throw out the hammer, the more hammers I have, and especially with the Furnace, because it is such a slow attacking weapon, I want to have that attacking speed. Now if you don't want to use the Gokuk of Swiftness, then you can definitely use, let's say, the Bane of the Powerful here. So after killing a lead pet, you get an extra 20% damage to everything, right? So you can use that there. If you feel like you need more toughness and you can't survive, then go with the Esoteric Alteration here. It will help you survive. But don't use the Molten Wild Gizzard together with the Esoteric Alteration, because you're going to be losing a lot of damage if you do. So use either or, but not together, okay? So those are the gems that I would definitely recommend using instead if you don't feel like using the Gokuk of Swiftness, but the other two is required. Okay, so let's go with the Kanai Cube. I've already introduced the Joanna's arguments right there. It increases the attack speed of Blessed Hammer by 100%, and the rings itself. So those 3 rings, use them at your own discretion, whichever is best for you. So lastly is the armor slot right here. So there are 2 pieces of armor that I would recommend using. The first one that I have is the Reaper's Wrap. This is to help you gain back Wrath itself. So every health globe you pretty much pick up restores your Wrath by 30%, so helps you to throw out more hammer. Hammer. Next one is the Hexing Pants of Mr. Yan. Now this is a little bit more difficult to use because you always have to constantly be moving to gain that buff. If you do not move, that means you're going to be losing 20% of damage and Wrath regen when you're standing still. So it's really up to you whichever one you use. If you feel like you cannot master it, the Hexing Pants of Mr. Yan like I do because I suck, then definitely use the Reaper's Wrap right here. It does help to restore your Wrath, especially when you're in that mob situation where you're throwing out your hammer but you're forgetting to press Provoke, and then they're dropping health globe for you, so you're always gonna have Wrath there. So that's the Kanai Cube, and that's the item, and that's the legendary gems. I don't think I'm missing anything there. So let's go into our skills and what we're using. So our main skill is going to be Blessed Hammer with Limitless. Now the reason why we're using Limitless is that the initial hammers that we throw out will have a 50% chance to actually split into another hammer. So it makes a new hammer at the same location where it's at, and then it starts spinning out again. So the more hammer you throw out, which means the more chances that it's gonna split, which means there are more hammers on the screen for enemies to get hit by. So that means it's a flurry of hammers, a disco ball of hammers flying everywhere, and that's why we use this instead of the other runes. Okay, so that is the rune that we are using. Next one is Provoke. Provoke helps us to restore Wrath with each enemies that you taunt. And then we use Too Scared to Run. Now the reason why we use Too Scared to Run is because it reduces their attack speed by 50% and slow their movement speed by 80% whenever you use taunt for 4 seconds, right? It helps to pretty much help us survive a little bit more with that 50% reduction in their attack speed, but mainly of course is the Wrath regen is what we really use it for. Okay, so next one is Steed Charge with Endurance, pretty much obvious why we use it. Situational, just run, and of course in between pack, just run. This is why we use it. Next one is Accurate Champion with Profit. Obvious reasons why we use it well. No need for an explanation for that. For laws, now laws of Valors, you have two choices. You can use critical to increase your critical hit damage by 100%. Or you can use Unstoppable Force. Unstoppable Force helps you to reduce your Blessed Hammer's Wrath by 50%, so it only costs 5 Wrath, and then your Paragon level goes in by another 20%, so like it will cost like 3 Wrath per Blessed Hammer. So you can use either or. They both work really well. But you know, if you feel like your Wrath regeneration is not that great, then use Unstoppable Force. If it's not, then use Critical Hit for more damage. But either or works, because the more hammer you have, the more damage you do. Or less hammer you have, but more damage you do. It's the same thing. So those choices, it's up to you. The last one is Iron Skin. Now this is to help us, you know, reduce damage by 50% for 4 seconds. Now what we're using is Flash right here, and what this does is that whenever you get hit, and especially when you're surrounded by mobs, when you get hit, you can move through them instead of like being stuck in the middle and having to use your speed charge to go out. You just move, and then your speed is increased by 60% for 5 seconds, right? You move out, and then you just throw your hammers again. That's why we use Iron Skin. You could pretty much, if you really want to, like, you know, take it out and change it into Shield Glare with Zelius Glare right here, or Divine Verdict for an extra 20% more damage, or what else was there that you can do? You can use Falling Sword if you want to try that, if you want to. I haven't seen a crit for 1 billion or something, so that's really up to you. But Iron Skin is good. Shield Glare is also good itself with the 20% increase in damage. That's really up to you, your choice, but the other skill is required, period. Okay, so now onto the passive skills. We want to use Indestructible. Obvious reasons why, no need for an explanation. We want to use Heavenly Strength because we're using the Furnace. We're going to use that. If we're using Joanna's Argument, which is one-hander, then we use Fervor right here. Cooldown reduction is not really required, but the attack speed is really nice. So if you're using the Joanna's Argument, and then you put Furnace as your Kanai's Cube slot, okay? And then we use Blunt, of course, obvious reasons, to increase our Blessed Hammer by 20%. And then Finery, of course, obvious reason to increase our damage itself. For passive, we're going to be using, for core, we want movement speed to be 25% to match it up with your boot speed. Right? Okay, so it would be maximum 25%. Add it up, and then everything else into strength. And then offensive, critical hit chance, attack speed, critical damage, whichever one's first, but critical hit chance first. And then lastly is cooldown reduction. If you feel that you really need cooldown reduction, then use cooldown reduction first, but really it's not needed, period. For defenses, we need resist all, armor, life regeneration, then life. Lastly is utility. We want resource cost reduction, obvious choice why. And then life on hit, then area damage, then gold fine. And I believe that is it for everything that we need. It's a pretty fun build, you know. I like it. It looks pretty obvious, you know, having to throw your hammer and then them splitting up, 50% chance splitting up, and it's so cool. I like it a lot. It's better than the Condemned build, and it's pretty cool. It's actually the top tier build right now to use, if you can get that high. It's pretty much based on luck and your own skills. But that is pretty much it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I am happy to answer whichever questions it is, even if it's a silly one. Hit me up on Twitter too if you want to ask me there. And of course, come join my stream. Sometimes I stream around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Latest is 8 p.m. or to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can ask me questions there. I have good music. We can actually have really fun. And if you like this video, a thumbs up would definitely be appreciated, and share it as well. And don't forget to press subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.